Hello everybody, it's Graylin from US Skywall. Today I want to talk a little bit about weak auras. Not so much a how-to, because there's plenty of guides out there on how to make a weak aura. It's more about the why. Like, a lot of people get intimidated about it, like, oh, I don't need that, that's not going to help me in raiding. But it is, and it will, I promise. So let me give you an idea. Like, you know that you want to use weak auras to track buffs, debuffs, procs, things like that. Let me give you a little bit of idea of why, and show you with some context about why it's a good idea. So normally with the default Blizzard UI, when you're trying to track your buffs, your debuffs, it comes up here in the upper right hand screen where you see my poisons right now, which I probably should make a weak aura for because I've changed spec and had them not there and completely forgot to apply it before pulling a boss. So normally you have to try to track them up there. During a boss fight where it feels like you have 1,000 things to track, you really can't take the time to glance up there, or even if it takes just a millisecond to glance up there, that 1 millisecond could mean you miss something important on the field of battle itself. So one of the best things about weak auras or other aura tracking add-ons, it doesn't have to be weak auras, it's just the one that I find that I prefer. It's robust, it has a lot of options. Is a beginner can easily set it up and get a few going, whereas if you're an advanced user, you can do some pretty crazy awesome stuff. So one of the things that a rogue has to track, probably their most important damage buff, is Slice and Dice, and it lasts usually about 30 seconds, depending on how many combo points you use it, but most of them will be lasting around that, some more, some less, depending on when it has to get used. But normally it would appear up here in the upper right hand screen, which means I might miss when it falls off, and you want as close to 100% uptime on that as you can. Many other classes have very similar buffs that they would want to keep up about 100% of the time. So let's take a look at the weak aura I made for it. So I'll start combat here. I'm not going to do a proper rotation or anything like that. So you can see I've got my combo points down here. I'm at 5 now, so now I want to go ahead and pop my Slice and Dice. Oh, see how it appears here as a nice big icon? It's right in my field of view. Like, this is where most of the fight happens for my eyes. And this is where you want to be looking. You can see fire if you're standing in it down here. You can see the boss and abilities he or she may be telegraphing. So another buff that rogues have to keep up, combat rogues anyway, is the Revealing Strike. And that is right there. So you can see my Slice and Dice is starting to get low. It's about to fall off. And it can be refreshed before it falls off. So during a fight, I'd refresh it right now. Still easily within my field of view. Much better than trying to track it up here. See that up there? Yeah, I don't want to try to glance up there, especially if it's missing, or during a raid fight. You know how fast these icons change as temporary buffs and debuffs expire and get applied. There's no really keeping up with that, whereas down here, it's nice and clean. And I put this over my self frame, where I've got my energy, my combo points, my targets right here. And this could even be cleaned up more. This is not a professional UI by any means, just simple and functional. So another thing that weak auras can be used to track, and you will want to track during raid fights, is your cooldowns, DPS cooldowns. Most DPS cooldowns in most situations, it's beneficial to use them just as they come up. Of course, some fights different depending on the timing of abilities. And you can see I have those right here. These are actually not buttons. I can't click on these. These are my cooldowns, and you don't see them bound here. I actually have those hidden using Bartender over here on the right because I don't need to see them. They don't need to be out here. That's just more clutter, more distraction that you don't need during a boss fight. During a boss fight, you just want to see pertinent information, nothing extraneous. So let's take a look at how these weak auras look. You can see I've got them highlighted in gold here. That's because I want to notice when they come back up. When one of these abilities comes back up, it flashes and highlights in gold. So even if I'm looking over here or I'm looking here in the middle at a boss fight, my eyes will catch that. Just out of the corner of my eye, I'll see that my ability has come up, and I'll be able to use it with a quick glance. So let's take a couple look at those. Alright, let's go ahead and use the Killing Spree here. See? Now it puts it on cooldown. And it grays it out as well, so if my eyes glance down there at some point during the fight, they'll just go right over that. My eyes are already trained to ignore the grayed out ones. So I'd pop another one. And see, now all those abilities are on cooldown there. And that's my other weak aura for another self buff is Blade Flurry, which any rogue knows how important it is to turn it off when you don't need it and on when you do. Prior to putting it down here, there were times I would leave it on, I forgot about it, and just wondering why was my energy regenerating so slow. Well, that's why. So let me get out of combat here, and we'll take a look at another thing that weak auras is good for tracking. You see, these here are just simple icons. To set up something like this, you just go to weak auras, new icon, and then you got any icon you want. So another good thing weak auras is good at tracking is trinket procs and like the legendary ring proc or on use. The reason you might want to track these, or the reason you do want to track these really, especially in regards to trinket procs that have like a random proc chance during the fight, RPPM trinkets, is when it's up, you might want to dump more resources than you normally would in that window. Consider a rogue. A lot of our time is spent pulling energy, saving combo points, things like that, so when our bigger abilities are up, we have the resources to use them. But if one of my trinkets procs, I don't have one of them now, but with like my soul capacitor pops and gives me the 33% extra damage during its duration, or my multi-strike trinket procs and gives me a couple thousand extra multi-strike for 10 to 15 seconds, during that window I might want to use some resources that I'd otherwise normally be saving. Mana classes, it might be mana or arcane charges, any number of things that you were saving, you might want to dump into the window of when your trinket proc. So let's take a look at that. I'm not actually going to use a trinket since I don't have a proc trinket on this class. I'm going to use the ring instead, which the ring looks, its weak aura looks very similar to how I do my trinket proc. So let's get the fight started here. Get myself buffs up. I don't pop the ring on pull because I got to apply stuff. All right, let's go ahead and use that. See, it appears here as a bar, and I put it nice and big so that I can see it. If someone else uses the ring, I want it to get my attention, know, hey, it's time to dump some resources. My soul cap is a red bar like this that appears right below this. And that's a good way to use your trinkets. You can see down here below my CDs, I have the stacking buff that rogues get, our insight levels. It goes green, yellow, and red. And I just kind of have it down here because when it's red, well, like right now, I get a significant damage increase, and this is another time I might want to dump extra resources, or if my cooldown is coming up during that time, I want to make sure I use it during that time, even if I was maybe saving it for something else. Alright, those are some of the reasons why to use weak auras. If you are not tracking these buffs with some kind of aura tracking add-on or something right now, you will benefit from doing so. I promise, no matter how good you are with using the default UI, and there are good players. Everyone knows that story, the guy who clicks and has the default UI and doesn't use weak auras and plays phenomenally well. Well, most of us aren't that guy or girl. Most of us are going to need a little bit of help, and there's no shame in using add-ons to track these things. In many ways, the game is designed to require you to use these for any form of raiding. So if you're already a raider just looking at improving your game and you're not doing this, do it. I promise you will see an increase in performance, whether it's DPS, tanking, or healing. If you're a newer raider or looking to get into it, you've been daunted, intimidated by it, or unsure of what kind of things you would really track, those will give you some ideas. Your most important buffs, debuffs, don't fill it up and try to track every single thing. Like, you'll see that there's some things I don't track. You'll notice that like my weapon procs aren't tracked in there. I didn't see the benefit as big enough, and they proc often enough that I'm not too worried about trying to fit things into the window of when my weapons proc. But maybe a really advanced player would track their weapon procs and take advantage of them like that. I don't track things like sprint. It's just down here. Cloak of Shadows, same thing. So you don't have to track everything because you don't want too much information overloading you during a boss fight. The idea is just to have available the pertinent information that you need for your performance. Thank you everybody much for watching. If you like it, subscribe or leave a comment, and have a great afternoon. Thank you.